Good morning, my fellow Canadians. Here we go again. If ever there was proof, indisputable proof, of the total disconnect by the Liberals with Canadian values and with Canadian mores, Canadian culture, yes, we have a culture. It's been put to rest by our esteemed, and I say that sarcastically, Minister of Immigration, Ahmed Hussein. He stated we are obligated to take illegal refugees, illegal immigrants. No, not now, not ever are we obligated to take illegal refugees, illegal immigrants. I can't believe that he would be stupid enough to say that publicly and to make that statement. I might get slammed for being, anybody who slams me for being anti-immigrant is an idiot. I've gone on in other posts about my background, my ethnic background, my exposure to new Canadians. My wife being a perfect example, went through all the process, all the paperwork, all the numbers. We crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's for her to get her permanent residency or landed. So friends of mine from Eastern Europe who have gone through the process and are proud to be Canadian, working, contributing to this country. Obligated. That just torqued me reading that. I did a previous post on immigration. There might be some repeats in this, but I was thinking about my grandparents and people I have worked with within the community. I looked up Mr. Hussein's bio on Wikipedia to see what qualified him to be a minister of immigration. A minister of immigration, an advisor, certainly, but a minister? If you look at the formation of the Liberal cabinet, it was formed with a view to the optics, which was about as stupid a thing as I can think of for a cabinet that is going to rule a nation. The criterion were gender and ethnicity. So he could show his diversity in the Liberal cabinet. Not on qualification, not on competence, not on skill. So we have Ahmed Hussein, probably one of the greatest disasters we've ever had as a Minister of Immigration. Chrystia Freeland, shall I go on about her? I think not. Climate Barbie there, Catherine McKenna. Anybody who can read a newspaper, anybody who can listen to what she says, even her admission that if you tell a lie, loud enough and often enough, people will start to believe it. Old concept, but she's adopted it and she took the ball and ran with it. I'm watching my country, the country that I love, being dismantled by a government that is probably the most disastrous government in the history of this country. I have had a lot of exposure, like I've said in my past, working with new Canadians. And over basically my entire life, when I was young, we had what we used to call the DPs, the displaced people from Eastern Europe in the Ukrainian community. And I met a lot of them, people who had fled the disaster. I worked with people who fled the Hungarians who fled the communist regime in the Hungarian Revolution of '56. I met Czechs who fled communist crackdown on Czechoslovakia in '64, Ukrainians who fled a war-torn, damaged, and repressive Soviet regime from the Second World War onward. People, and talking to these people, finding out how their cultures were damaged and destroyed or sublimated by the conquering Russians. I have met so many people who appreciate Canada almost more than people who were Canadian born. because they have a comparator. They have something they can compare our society against. The problem is too many Canadians grew up taking for granted the freedoms and the benefits of being a Canadian. So, where has this led us? To the current mess we're getting. And one need only look, and this is what I can't understand. It is right there in front of your face. Look at England and the problems in England. Look at France and the problems in France. Look at Germany and the problems in Germany. Look at Belgium, which will probably be a Muslim country, or at least Muslim dominated with Sharia law in at least one more generation. Obligated to take illegal immigrants. No, sir. My grandparents came here. They worked like hell to build a life in Canada. They were true pioneers. They went into wild prairie, cleared the land, turned it into arable farmland, had families, raised their children to appreciate Canada. My father served, my uncles served, I served, my brother served in the Canadian military. All of us with a deep love of this country and what it can and should be. The Liberals understand none of this. An immigration policy, a fair and reasonable immigration policy, has to be predicated on common sense and hard practicality. In the old system, there were health checks. I have a great uncle I never met because he was turned back in Holland for medical reasons. He never got to board the ship when my grandmother came over to Canada. I believe it was Amsterdam, could have been Rotterdam, but I believe it was Amsterdam, and he was turned away by the Canadian authorities as medically unfit for entry into Canada. The policy that the Liberals implemented never factored in basic common sense. Before you implement anything, you do your groundwork. It's like building a home. Before you build a home, you do your groundwork. How much will the lot cost? What's the zoning restrictions or requirements? Do you have a good contractor? What kind of home do you want? What will be the costs involved? Costs involved. So, before any of this was implemented, and especially illegal refugees, they should have done a cost-benefit analysis. They should have done at least cost projections. Where are they going to be housed? How much will it cost to feed them, to clothe them? What we should have had, what they should have implemented, were educational centers where you would have people from the different ethnic groups who, good Canadians, but with the same ethnic background, who understood the mindset of the people, spoke the language of the people. There should have been printed matter for those of the illegals who can read, should have been printed matter that explained the do's and don'ts of living in Canada, to orient them to Canada, to educate them as to Canadian culture. This should have all been in position. Instead, it was just come, open the doors and come. And then you watch them, and if you see what they've been doing, it's, what do we do now? How stupid is that? What do we do now? How do we handle this? And they're running around like chickens with their heads cut off, trying to implement policies and just doubling down on this stupidity over and over and over and over again. I find this astounding when people talk about liberals and elitism. Oh, did you see that moronic professor, another ethnic new Canadian, who says that the Conservative Party is a party basically for the uneducated? Again, arrogant liberal elitist. a moron who laughs at blue-collar workers as uneducated. Isn't this nice? If you vote conservative, you're uneducated. You're stupid, essentially was what he said. Well, I wonder if he realizes that the house he lives in was built by stupid people with with cracked fingernails and cuts and scrapes and dirty hands. I wonder if he realizes the car he drives was built by stupid people. I wonder if he realizes the clothes he wears were made by stupid people. The food he eats was grown or farmed or ranched by these same stupid people. To that arrogant prick, I say, if it wasn't for those stupid, uneducated people, you would not have a house to live in, you would not have a car to drive, you would not have clothes to wear, and you would not have food to eat. But again, that same liberal disconnect with hard reality. If we had an intelligent immigration policy, we have a history of taking people who are displaced, but there was certain practicalities involved in it. There were practicalities involved in educating the people, the new Canadians, in their own language. There was both written material and translators, good Canadian, solid Canadian citizens who spoke their language and understood the culture, knew how to speak to them, how to educate them. You don't do this. This is the difference between here and there. They've screwed up so bad, the Liberals. They're bringing in these people with no hope of gainful employment. They don't speak the language. They have no marketable job skills. What are they going to do? Suck off the system and breed more children. I've used the term before, parasites, but parasite, sadly, is totally applicable. A parasite, if you look it up by definition, is something that sucks off a host and provides nothing in return. Parasite. You do not, as a leader of a nation, welcome, encourage parasitism, because the people, the working people, the taxpayers have to pay for this. And they have every right to demand of their government that when you bring people into this country, they will be contributing members of our society. If not this generation, at least the next generation. Honor killings are not allowed here. Wife beating is not allowed here. Female genital mutilation, not permissible in this country. Acid attacks, not permissible in this country. They have to learn this. They have to be taught this. They have to be taught this by people who speak their language and understand their culture. And the Liberal Party has dropped the ball so badly. If the Conservatives, and I hope and pray, form the next government, they have got such a mess to clean up, just like poor Doug Ford here in Ontario cleaning up 16 years of Liberal stupidity. You're going to have the same thing. Jason Kenney, same thing. NDP stupidity he's got to try to clean up. We've only had 4 years. Hopefully, the 4 years of the Trudeau regime will be finished once and for all. Canadians have learned their lesson about voting Liberal, hopefully. And if the Conservatives handle this wisely, we can get back on track. It's not hopeless. They don't have as daunting a task as Ford does. 16 years of Liberal mismanagement he's got to try to overturn. A solid, considerate, practical, pragmatic immigration policy is a must given the changing world demographic. People who live in the real world, people who understand real world concerns, real world problems. This is what we need at the helm of this nation. Why people would vote in moronic elitists, educated idiots, into positions of power and then expect responsible government. How anybody could have done this is beyond me. I did a post earlier, I urge you to watch it if you didn't, about politics then and now, the politicians of my youth versus what is, especially the Liberals, in Canada today. If you haven't seen it, it's worth the watch. I think I explained fairly clearly what happened to the political leaders, to the spine that they used to have, the good Canadians we used to have, that sense of country, national pride that we used to have, that the Liberals have done their level best to dismantle. My fear, and I brought this up before, unless there is something done, it's going to get violent. There is going to be violence. People are going to start getting hurt. The police are hamstrung by political considerations. We are not Europeans. People are going to start to get hurt. And it'll be as like more on me or Tory blaming guns again for the crime. It's been explained to him, but you may as well talk to a wall. The guy's got his mind made up. He's one of these individuals, like a lot of the Liberals, my mind's made up. Don't confuse me with facts and data. Good attitude, right? Especially in the leader. In an individual, yeah, you can look at by and dismiss them as an idiot. But when you have someone who is a leader, who has influence over the community or the nation, and they adopt that attitude, the damage being done to my country is not irreversible, but it is severe. If you love this country, and I've harped on this, if you love this country, it's time to vote in a government that understands fiscal responsibility, understands Canadian values, Canadian mores, Canadian culture, Canadian history, understands what is best for the people of Canada. The people of Canada, not their little percentile of elitist buddies, but for the people of Canada. The government exists to serve the people. Basic common sense. The purpose of the government, civil service, to serve the society and to serve the people. We do not exist to serve the government, but that is the Liberal attitude. We exist as servants of the state. So the whole concept of what Canada was founded on has been turned totally on its head. Now, if you're good with that, you're no friend of mine. You're not a Canadian. I don't know what the hell you are, some new age freaking moron. But if you truly love this country, make your voice heard. Get involved. Make your voice heard. Join your riding association. Door knock. Answer phones. Get involved. Talk to your neighbors. If you like the direction Canada's going in, you're an idiot with no sense of national pride. But if you want to see us what we should be back to again, please, please, please help me save our country. Thank you. Have a good day.